Yes, good morning, Navjot, Puneet, Hemant, and Siddhi. So, after 3 days holidays, again the normal class started with a new news that you will be having your online examination. Okay, you have got, I think so, the timetable. So, today we will be starting with a new chapter in macroeconomics. Okay, listen, it's a very interesting chapter, students. Good morning, Saiba. It's a very interesting chapter. Okay, now I'll give you some future recalling or the past classes recalling. I will recall you. 2 minute late, sir. Yes, I can understand, Navjot. 2 minute late. I can able to continue this live class for 1 hour also if you want. If it's 2 minute late you are taking, I can continue for 1 hour if you want. I don't have any problem. Okay. Now in microeconomics in class 11, good morning Vijeta. In microeconomics class 11, you have, yes, good morning Joydeep. Now concentrate everyone. In microeconomics class 11, you have seen that there is a demand chapter, no? In class 11, you have read that demand chapter. That demand chapter, yes, Saiba, leave all these comments, concentrate in your study, okay? I'm explaining, listen nicely. So that demand chapter is all about that how a single consumer demanding, okay, how a single consumer demanding. Okay, now in this chapter you will see, since you are doing macroeconomics, and I have told macroeconomic means what, students? It's a aggregate, means it's a study of total economy. Okay, overall economy, whole economy you will be studying. In 11 you have done microeconomics, means all single. Whatever you have read, it's all about single. Now here you will study about whole economy, how all the consumers are behaving, how all the people in the economy are behaving, how all the, yes, Samad and Khushbu, can just listen, okay? Listen. Good morning, listen. So now you will start with this demand, aggregate demand and related concepts. Okay, now what is this aggregate demand, student? I have told about this. Aggregate means the total whole, the total society, the whole economy, how this whole economy is behaving. Okay, how this whole economy is behaving in the economy, you can tell. In the demand related matters, you can tell. In the how this demand, the whole economy is providing demand in the market. Now meaning and components of aggregate demand. Now which components or which things affect this aggregate demand, we will study first. There are certain components, there are certain things or matters which affect or provide or give some effect on this aggregate demand. So first we'll know what is this aggregate demand. Aggregate demand, it is also known as eddy curve, okay, refers to the total value of final goods and services which all the sectors of an economy are planning to buy at a given level of income during a period of one accounting year. Okay, so what is it telling? It is telling that aggregate demand means how this goods and services which are produced in the market is demanded or purchased by the whole economy. And this demanding of these goods are planned. Planned means some decisions have been taken at first. Some decisions have been taken at first. Some planning has been made by the consumer. Then only the demand takes place. Once again I will explain. Aggregate demand tells about the demand of all consumers or demand of the society. Okay, on what? On final goods and services which are produced within a accounting period or accounting year, during a period of 1 year or 2 year or 3 year or more than that. Okay, now this demand will be a planned demand or a planned decision. In other words, aggregate demand is a total expenditure that different sectors of the economy are willing to incur during a given period. So what is it telling? It is telling that aggregate demand is the total expenditure. Expenditure means what? Expenses. Expenditure means what? Spending. How much you are spending. So I can tell aggregate demand is also aggregate expenditure. Means it tells about the how much the sector or how much the society is spending on the goods and services. Same thing. So aggregate AD and aggregate demand expenditure means the same. It is important to note that aggregate expenditure refers to the planned expenditure and not the actual expenditure. It means about what is this planned and actual. Actual means how much I have thought that I will expend or I will spend, and how much I have planned for to spend. This is the difference between the planned expenditure and actual expenditure. Both these actual and planned, students, are little bit different. There is a difference between planned and actual. Actual means whatever you have done, and planned means whatever you have thought that you will spend. Okay. So the aggregate demand AD is the total expenditure that all the households, firms, government and the rest of the world are planning to incur during a given period of time. So what this all total this aggregate demand means? Aggregate demand means the total demand, the total expenditure, the total spending done by the consumers, the households means the consumers, firms, government and the rest of the world. Rest of the world means foreign countries, outside countries. Rest of the world means foreign countries, outside countries. So demand from this four sector, okay, which is planned during a period of time is known as aggregate demand or aggregate expenditure or planned expenditure. Okay, this concept is clear. Okay, yes, good morning Aryan. Now there is some difference between aggregate demand and market demand. You can see it is written. Aggregate demand, what I have told, it is as it is. Okay, now what is this market demand means? Market demand is the total demand for one commodity in the market. See the difference. Aggregate demands, aggregate I have told that aggregate means total. Okay, aggregate means total. Total economy, total society, whole society. But this market demand tells about one commodity, demand for total demand for only one commodity. See the difference. Total demand for only one commodity. But in aggregate demand, what is it telling? Total demand for all final goods and services produced during a period of time. Okay, but for here market demand, total demand for only single commodity. So we cannot confuse with aggregate demand and market demand. Okay, those who thinks that they should write, because I repeat one sentence 1 or 2 times, if you all thinks that you should jot down those points which you have done in classes, you can write it down in your own, in a small, in your own language, or whichever you think is it. Okay, now aggregate demand, you will be knowing about the components, means which things are included in this aggregate demand. First is your private or household or consumption expenditure. Expenditure means spending. Spending means demand. Demand coming from household, this is consumption expenditure, and it is denoted by capital C. Okay, demand coming from household, coming from consumers. Okay, it is denoted by capital C. Next you will see in the second portion of it, investment expenditure. Invest expenditure means expenditure coming via investment, means from the private firms, from the industries. Okay, spending, demand from private firms. This is one component which is investment expenditure, which is denoted by capital I. Next you will be coming with government expenditure, means the spending, the demand from government. It will also be taken into account because it's aggregate demand. You have to take all the sectors spending. So it is denoted by capital G. And at last, net export. What is this net export, students? You are coming with the new top point or new name, net export. You know that export and import means what? Export means when there is a demand of our own good only from outside. When there is a demand for our good, domestic good, which is produced within this good by the rest of the world, means by foreign, that is export. And what is import? When there is demand from our domestic country for the goods of the rest of the world, means foreign country. When there is a demand for the foreign goods by the domestic country, it is known as import. Now the difference between this export and import. Export is denoted by capital X, import is denoted by capital M. So why is it X? Because export, this word export, E-X-P-O-R-T, from this word X has been taken, which will denote export. And import, I-M-P-O-R-T, from this M we will denote import. So the difference between this export and import, we name it as net export. So these are the 4 components, C, I, G, X minus M. So what if I will tell you, if I will tell you to derive a formula or an equation of this aggregate demand, you can able to say that aggregate demand is equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Means all total of C, I, G and X minus M will denote this aggregate demand. Now student, from the beginning only you have done, see in next net export. Now Puneet, see, what is net export? Net export means difference between export and import. The difference between export and import is termed as net export. Okay, means if there is 20 goods you have exported outside and 10 goods you have imported from outside, means from foreign. Okay, means In other words, 20 goods you have sold in foreign and 10 goods you have purchased from foreign. So if I will tell you, Puneet, what is the difference between this export and import, tell me. You will tell, sir, 10. How you have got 10? 20 minus 10. Export minus import. 20 minus 10 is equals to 10. So 10 is your net export. So difference between export and import is termed as net export. Now coming back to the discussion, AD equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, I have told. Now students, in the first chapter you have seen or you have studied that you have done that two sector model. Means in circular flow of income you have done two sector model. There you have include only household and firm. Yes or no? You have not included foreign sector. You have not included financial institution. Okay, you can, there are two sector model, three sector model, four sector model, there are many sector of model, but in your syllabus you are having only two sector model. Means you will deal with only the household and firm in circular flow of income. But here also you will deal with what? You will be dealing with two sector model. Means this government and net export you will eliminate. You will not take into account. Okay, you will be dealing with what? You will be dealing with AD equals to C plus I, like same like circular flow. C is the household and I is your investment expenditure which is coming from firm. So aggregate demand in a two sector model, AD equals to C plus I. With this equation you will deal with this aggregate demand. Now I will read these components and I will explain. Okay, if anybody will be having some problem, you can able to clarify it or you can able to understand it. See, what is this consumer expenditure telling here, students? It refers to the total expenditure incurred by or done by, incurred means done by households on purchase of goods and services during a accounting year. So what is it telling? It is telling that total expenditure, total spending, total demand done by household or the consumers on purchase of goods and services. Means how much the consumers, how much the households are investing, spending on final goods and services which is produced in the accounting year or a particular period of year. Okay, so generally consumption expenditure is directly influenced by the level of disposable income. So what is this disposable income, students? Now it is telling student that the consumer spending will be depending on the disposable income. Disposable income means, students, disposable income refers to the income from all sources which is available to households for spending on consumption and saving. That is, higher the disposable income, more is the consumption expenditure and vice versa. So what is this disposable income, students? I will tell you. Now students, if your father is getting 20,000 rupees, if your father is getting 20,000 rupees and he has decided that 10,000 rupees he will be spending on consumption and for the saving purpose, and remaining 10,000 he will be keeping it as a fixed deposit. Means he will not touch that money. He will be keeping aside. He will not use for consumption. He will not use for saving. He will be using this 10,000 for future purpose. The 10,000 which is kept aside as fixed deposit, for example, will be not taken into account. But the 10,000 which he has kept for consumption and saving purpose, that is the disposable income. That 10,000 is the disposable income. So students, if this disposable income will rise, then the consumption and the saving will also rise of your father. For example, previously your father is getting 20,000 rupees. Now your father is getting 30,000 rupees. So your father has decided that 15,000 he will keep as fixed deposit or for future purpose, and 15,000 he will be using it for consumption as saving. So see, as the real income has increased, for example, the income of the consumer has increased, your father income of your father has increased from 20,000 to 30,000, the disposable income is also increased from 10,000 to 15,000. And since the disposable income will increase, the consumption will also increase. So the higher the disposable income, more is the consumption expenditure. Means there is a direct relationship between the disposable income and the consumption pattern. Okay, this is all about your consumption expenditure. So now you'll be coming with the investment expenditure. What is this investment expenditure, students? So it refers to the total expenditure incurred by all the private firms on capital goods. So what it is telling? It is telling that the spending which is done by all the private firms. Disposable income includes consumption and saving, Puneet. What I have told? I have told that disposable income will increase, your consumption plus saving will increase. Both the thing will increase. See, as your father's income has increased from 20,000 to 30,000 and disposable income is 15,000 rupees. So from that 15,000, your father will be saving some amount which will increase since your disposable income has increased from 10,000 to 15,000. And same thing, some consumption will also increase. Or if you are taking it from another side, students, what I have told, when your father's income was 20,000, the fixed deposit, how much he is keeping? 10,000. Now your father's income is 30,000. So the fixed deposit had increased from 10,000 to 15,000. So from the other part also you can see that saving is increasing. So disposable income have effect on both consumption and saving. And if there is increase in disposable income, then the consumption plus the saving may also increase. But since we have not done yet this now, by later you will see that what effect this disposable income is having on saving. We will see it later. Now we are doing consumption, so we are giving importance on consumption. So as disposable income is increasing, consumption is also increasing. Keep this thing in your mind. Now investment expenditure tells about the expenditure which is done by private firms or industries on what? On capital goods, means on purchasing machinery, on purchasing equipments, on purchasing buildings, etc. Okay, firms or industries will be investing on these all things so that their production will increase. So spending by the firms or industries on this capital goods is the investment expenditure. Okay, now it will be coming of government expenditure. What is government expenditure, student? It refers to the total expenditure incurred by the government on consumer goods and capital goods to satisfy the common needs of the economy. So what is this government expenditure? Government is always meant for service. Government is always look into the matter of the welfare of the economy. So government will be investing on both the goods, capital goods and consumer goods. So to satisfy the needs of the economy. So if the government is investing on consumer goods and capital goods, that is only the government expenditure. It means government incurs consumption expenditure as well as investment expenditure. Okay, so government is including both the things, consumption expenditure, investment expenditure also, because the government is investing on consumer good and investing on capital good. Consumption expenditure is incurred to meet public needs like law and order, education, health, transport, defense, etc. So all from this all field, consumption expenditure is fulfilled. Okay, how consumption public needs is what? For education there will be public need, for health there will be public need, for transport there will be public demand, for defense there will be public demand. All this thing will be fulfilled by whom? The government, by investing on this consumption expenditure. And what is the investment expenditure? Involves construction of highways, roads, power plants, etc. Yes, these private firms, these industries can demand to the government for all these things. Then the government has to invest on these things. And that investment on constructing highway, roads, power plants is only an investment expenditure because this is done mainly for the private firms. Power plants, installation of huge machinery, okay, building for the private firms, industries, all these things. So government having a hand on both the expenditure. And at the last you are having net export, which I have discussed. Exports indicate demand for goods produced within the domestic territory of a country by the rest of the world. Domestic territory means within your territory, within your country, which is India. And the demand coming from foreign, that is your export. And imports refers to the demand of the residents of the country for the goods that have been produced abroad. Abroad means foreign. The goods which is produced in foreign and the demand from our country, that is the import. So the difference between the export and import is the net export. So this is the complete explanation of the components of aggregate demand. Now we will see this aggregate demand in a two-sector model, AD equals to C plus I. Since the determination of income and employment is to be studied in the context of two-sector model, households and firms, the third and fourth components of aggregate demand are not discussed in detail. So, even though AD has four components, we will assume that AD is a function of only consumption expenditure and investment expenditure. So, even though we know that AD has four components, we will be dealing with only two components, consumption and investment. AD equals to C plus I. So, it's an assumption you can tell. Okay, now we will be coming on the diagrammatic explanation of this AD curve. AD depends upon the level of income in the economy. Very, very important. How this aggregate, in what this aggregate demand is depending. Aggregate demand is depending on income. total income of the economy. Generally, there exists a positive relationship between income and level of aggregate expenditure in the economy. That is, as level of income rises, aggregate demand will also rise. So I have told you in consumption expenditure, there is a positive relation or a direct relation between this income and the aggregate demand. Means more the income, means if there is an increase in income, there will be increase in aggregate demand. Okay, so you will be seeing this curve which is drawn here. I will come to this diagram. I think so for today it can be said as net export equals to export minus, exactly, net export Saiba, it can be told, that is only I have told that net export is equals to export minus import. This thing in the book, it is written in a short form. They have denoted export in a capital X and import in capital N. You can write net export equals to, in a word, export minus import, no problem in that. And that is only it is written here in a short form. Every time the word is, because we will be slowly we will be coming to the mathematical expression, mathematical sums, numerical sums will be coming from this chapter only. So there every time it is not possible, okay, to write the total word, because equation does not have some total word. That's why it is, see, it is written AD equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Always it is not possible to write it in a word. That's why some short term it is, or symbol which is required, or for denoting that total word. That's why it is written here. You can write export minus import. Okay. Now coming back to the diagram, I will explain this diagram tomorrow. Okay. I will be giving this diagram with the important points about aggregate demand in your note in that Google Classroom. Okay, first read it. Your duty is to read it out. Even if you don't understand, read 3 to 4 times. I think you will able to understand. You can able to understand. And tomorrow I will be discussing this diagram thoroughly. Okay. So another thing, students, I'm telling you, I have provided from the beginning the assignments of the circular flow and the money, banking, etc. Some people have only submitted, many of them has not submitted in Google Classroom. So please submit there the work which I am giving, the assignments which I am giving. I am providing with you relevant, sufficient study material, sufficient note. I think so that is very much, that is enough for you all to read and revise and to know the concept of any title. Okay, so try to complete those things. Okay, somebody is telling that Puneet, by assuming only this government expenditure and net export will not include in two sector model. Yes, by assuming, by assumption. You know, Puneet, from the 11 only you are seeing that economics, some portion we are assuming something. Okay, some portion every time we are assuming. So here we have taken the assumption. It is good for you all also, because 3 sector, 4 sector if comes, all this government, export minus import, it will be very much haphazard for you all, and this is not for your class 12 syllabus also. It is all of graduation syllabus of all this involving this G, X minus M. Okay, so up till class 12 you will be having AD equals to C plus I. Okay, so goodbye everyone. Try to submit the assignments. I'm telling you nicely, I'm not giving you any dead time, so please submit as your exam has came. So revise also those things, plus side by side submit. Okay, because at last I will give a big rush to you to complete all these things and submit in one day. It will be very much bad. Okay, so submit it. Okay, thank you everyone. Good morning once again. Goodbye.